Hello, America. Dave Hodges here. I'm the host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. Really good to be with you. To our friends around the world, and we have a growing international audience. We appreciate you. We are all partners in freedom, even if we don't share the same government. But we can all work towards the same ends. We stand for God, family, country. And in that, we want to teach people what's going on in the world, and more importantly, what are some options that you have? We are going through a profound change, as we covered in the last segment. I'm dubbing this the technotronic era, coming out of the industrial high tech age to the technotronic era. And as I pointed out, when we transition from one system, social, economic, so forth, political, move into another one, for about 20 years, history shows that we go through a real difficult time. Some people have even taken the spiritual belief that we could be living in the end times. I know my pastor believes that. I think there's some reason to think that, but also we're cautioned in the book of Revelation to not speculate as to when that is. Although there are signs that are there, but Jesus said, only my Father knows the hour and the day. Okay, so having said that, what I want to look at here is something that's going to get misinterpreted. So I want to say this off the top. I want a positive relationship with Israel. But right now, it's a very one-sided relationship. And that fundamentally needs to change, not because I think so, but because what we're doing right now is working against the interest of the American people. And where this is going in the near future is going to be detrimental to your family, to people you care about. Lives are at stake because of what's going on. And make sure you hear this and hear this clearly. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to mention 10 reasons why we need to rethink our relationship with Israel. I'm not saying cut the relationship off. This is not an anti-Semitic tirade. It's one government having too much influence over the sovereignty of this country and taking our government away from its prime directive, which is to serve the people that elected them, and serving a foreign entity to the exclusion of the welfare of the people who elected them. We're going to get into that in some detail here. And I know I can hear it now. Oh, he's anti Semitic. No, no. I'm America first and want good relationships with our allies, but not subservient relationships. We are brought to you by IRS code 7702. What? Exactly. That's the code that allowed the rich to get filthy rich, and it's still going on today. And they used to make it totally illegal to even discuss it publicly. Now you all have limitations on, what you can be told and the seminars you go through and this and that and the other. But Trump made this legal for the average person now. And what we're talking about is insurance, end of life, IULs, all these things bundled together, all these packages to produce revenue streams that are legal, above board, moral, and you can avoid paying tax legally in the code. In the code. I didn't write the code. You didn't write the code. The rich wrote the code. And I'm saying, hey, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Um, my good friend Joe Lombardi can teach you all about this. Now, this is not a $50 investment. This is a significant sum of money, and there's no set amount, but they will tell you very quickly with my friends at Iron Hawk Financial if this is for you or not for you. And a lot of times they'll suggest alternatives for you if it's not for you. They have never had a Better Business Bureau complaint. They've never lost a dime of client money. And it's someone I really trust wholeheartedly. Iron Hawk Financial, to find out more if this is right for you and to set yourself up to make the money of your dreams, go to dhawk.com. That's dhawk.com. Okay, now I'm going to say this off the top. I'm not calling for suspension of relationship with Israel, cutting off diplomatic relations. But I am calling for certain things to take place. Number one, as Americans, and I'll say this before I get into the reasons, we should never, never allow a foreign government to ever donate to the campaigns of American political elections, ever. And it should be a felony to accept money from a foreign government or their proxy or third party. Never. Because then who do they serve? What does the Bible say? You can't have two masters. You'll hate one and love the other. Well, this is what's happening a lot in America, where you got people like Schumer, and his statements are very, very clear. And you've got other people in Congress that serve Israel first. Now, part of that is because 94% of them take donations from AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, and they get to be unregistered, so we can't monitor everything that they're doing. Other FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act, other FARA designees, which we shouldn't have any because we shouldn't have any foreign governments donating, but they have to disclose what they're doing under penalty of law. Israel doesn't. That's wrong. Okay, let's get into some things that have troubled me about Israel through the years. And this has become increasingly a one-sided relationship. Okay, one was JFK. There is a significant amount of historical researchers that say that Israel had motive to participate in the demise of JFK. I can't say that's true, but I will tell you this. JFK wanted AIPAC to be registered as a lobby. He never got that done before his death. Number two, he was determined that Israel would never have a nuclear weapon. Well, that all changed under LBJ, but some people say, well, that gave Israel motive. Okay. Having a reason to be unhappy with someone is not the same as participating in their demise. But I'm just saying this. JFK's opposition, I believe, was the right one. I think we should stop all proliferation of nuclear weapons, though, cat's kind of out of the bag now. But back in the day, when we had a measure of control over this, we should have done that. Number two, their relationship with LBJ. When JFK died, LBJ said, "Oh, Israel lost a great friend in John Kennedy, but they gained a better friend with me." And was that ever true? This is when we started to send massive amounts of military aid and technology to Israel. Now, at that time, it made some sense because the Soviets could threaten Middle East oil supplies, and that would have devastating effects for America. I get that. But we went way above and beyond. LBJ, we know, shared state secrets, and he seemed to have no guardrails when it came to dealing with Israel. And hey, listen, I always believe in having friends, but even with friends, you need to have boundaries. And LBJ set the precedent that Israel could basically have their way with our government. Stay tuned because I'll make good on that statement. The next item on the list, the Liberty, happened on LBJ's watch. U.S. sailors on an American ship, clearly flying the American flag, were attacked and many were killed by the Israeli Air Force. It was unprovoked. No one will ever convince me that they didn't know what they were doing. Oh, it was an Egyptian ship. No, that's a bunch of nonsense. You clearly could see the American flag. If you can sight the ship, you see the flag. Well, there were other political issues going in that went into this that I'm not going to talk about, but it was a warning to America. And then it was like, oh, no, 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 my bad, my bad. No, no. They've never apologized. They never made restitution to the family members of the people they killed without reason. So the liberty still stands is a major problem for me when it comes to Israel. Next item, Jonathan Pollard, man's in the Navy, has access to secrets. And you know what he did? I don't know how he wasn't executed for treason. And I'm not saying this to advocate for violence. I'm talking about within our laws. The more serious the treasonous offense, the more severe the punishment. The Rosenbergs were executed for allegedly selling nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union. Well, this is almost as bad. He gave up our CIA list of operatives inside the Soviet Union. Hello? Do you think any of those people were killed? Well, you're darn right they were. We'll never know the details. And what did we do? We pardoned him. And now he's in Israel on the media. He's a podcaster. And he's obviously advocating for the Iranian war and a ground invasion. And then he says, after Israel, then we got to deal with Egypt and Turkey. What? More involvement with the U.S.? And last time I looked, Turkey's a member of NATO. They're our ally. Article 5, an attack upon one is an attack upon all. And yet, that's what we unleashed. Pollard, at minimum, should still be in prison for the rest of his life for what he did. There are people that died. People lost family members because of what he did. A complete betrayal. And Israel's just fine with it. And I have a problem with that too. And then there's the Charlie Kirk issue. TPUSA, Charlie, went on PBD's podcast and said Netanyahu implied this, wrong kind of leadership. October 7th was a false flag, took 6 hours for them to respond. And we know that Israel can respond within 3 minutes anywhere in their country, which is true. I've heard that bragged from IDF officials for years. Their self-defense is almost unparalleled in the world. I don't know that we can respond in 3 minutes everywhere with our territories, but Israel can, and they didn't. And then Charlie went on to say, same broadcast, Netanyahu committed genocide in Gaza. Hey, look, I've never supported Hamas. The Palestinian component that's connected to that, I've never supported them. But when you bomb elementary schools during the day, under the excuse that, well, Hamas had headquarters underneath and we just couldn't bomb them at night, okay, then I got to really look at your moral character. And I agree with what Charlie said. Charlie turned down money from Netanyahu. Charlie was concerned that TPUSA wasn't following his direction because they wanted that Israeli donor money from people like Adelson. And so they were undermining Charlie, and he ordered an audit 8 days before his death. Did they have motive? I think Candace has produced some pretty good proof. Can I say definitively? No. Will there be an investigation? No, because we're joined at Israel at the hip, hear no evil, see no evil. And what's amazing, this has to be really hard for President Trump to have had Kash Patel and Susie Wiles as chief of staff kill any investigation of Israel's involvement in Charlie by refusing to give up information on a possible foreign plot against Charlie, the firing of Joe Kent, the head of counterterrorism, over this issue, and the eventual demise of Tulsi Gabbard as the head of DNI. Excuse me, her husband had cancer before she took the job. You're not getting the real reason. I'm telling you the reason. They wouldn't shut up about Charlie. Then you've got this latest thing that I've talked about, the NDAA, where Israel and America are going to join at the hip with regard to technology, no military secrets, no held back technology, that we get the souped up F-35, they get a second or third generation model. Oh no, they're going to get everything we get at the benefit of you, the American taxpayer, and this is going to be given to them under the NDAA. And how long will it be until they give orders to our troops? Because that's what the NDAA Section 224 opens up if it's passed. I have a problem with that from a sovereignty standpoint. And I don't care what nation you're talking about. There should be no intermingling of the military. World War II was a perfect example. We had alliances. Eisenhower was put in charge of coordinating Europe. The Brits and the Aussies helped America in the Pacific, but we set the tone and the lead, not the other way around, where Israel's telling us what our action should be in the Middle East. I have a real problem with that, and we will eventually leave the technology weapons transfer and intermingling with taking orders. And we already are. We're involved in a war we should never have been involved in on behalf of Netanyahu. People want to laugh and scoff at that. That's fine. I can't see a valid reason for doing what we're doing. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. We've heard that excuse now for 25 years. 25 years. And in Iraq, gee, ask Scott Ritter, the UN weapons inspector, did he ever find any? No. Then, of course, we've got the draft that's coming. The draft age is modified. The enlistment age has been moved up to a higher age. I think it's 42 now. You've got men and women that have to register, and they'll be doing it automatically now, making it convenient. And we're on the verge of putting ground troops on places like Karg Island. I don't know that we're going to do a full invasion of Iran. That's military suicide. And I think the Pentagon would be in full rebellion. But we're going to have young Americans coming home in body bags because of Israel's dominance over our politics, 94% donations of the of the Congress people, Senate and House, 94% take donations from AIPAC. And we're about ready to pay a price for this. I remember what Jimmy Carter said in 2006. This is a man, listen, I think his presidency was a disaster. It's because he was staffed with trilaterals, Rockefeller, Brzezinski style. But I think he was basically a good man. I know he was a practicing Christian. And he said in 2006, Israel's all about themselves. They don't care about anybody but themselves. They engage in underhanded activities. I'm paraphrasing, but this is effectively what he said. And this is a guy that went to North Korea and negotiated with one of the most hostile nations on the face of the earth. When he's saying something's wrong with you, something is wrong. We're also risking a major world war because the Strait of Hormuz is closed because of ours and Israel's actions. China's now feeling the pinch. Other nations are feeling the pinch. This is how wars start. Wars start over resource deprivation, and we are in danger. Now, I don't think China's going to come to the Middle East and attack. I think they'll make a move on Taiwan or maybe even Guam or Diego Garcia. They'll attack us where we're not strong. Heck, we got most of our Navy in the Gulf. A lot of our Air Force is in the Gulf. China would be silly to go there. But in their backyard, that we've largely left mostly unprotected, we're risking this right now. And then finally, there is the Board of Peace, an organization recognized by the World Economic Forum, recognized by the UN Security Council, and they're put in charge of Gaza, which they're going to turn into a Maui for the rich and famous, smart cities. And we know, according to what we've read in Israeli publications, they plan on moving the surviving Palestinians to a new territory recognized by the UN called New Somaliland, or just Somaliland, all 2 million of them. And it's been alleged and admitted to by a couple of journalists inside of Israel that $6 billion from the Minnesota fraud went to this purpose. I can't prove that's true, but when Israel's own journalists say it, I think it's worth mentioning. But the reality is this, is the Board of Peace is an international organization, 30 nations represented. Trump is the head for life. And our top people like Susie Wiles and Rubio, and so they're on this. Jared Kushner, that makes me nervous because of his relationship with George Soros. And, Trump isn't talking about a third term anymore because this Board of Peace could end up being a unifying global body and it's unelected. And I'm not saying it's there now, but I'm saying it sure does carry a lot of political clout, and it worries me that we'll continue to transfer our sovereignty to something like this and away from our government. And people will laugh, say, oh, it would never happen. Trump took away the Trans-Pacific Partnership from Obama's days when he came in, and that had a board of 22 businessmen that could have negated anything coming out of Congress, the Supreme Court, the executive branch, and just killed it. It was disguised as a free trade agreement, but as a member Congress had to vote on it in secret. They weren't allowed to read the legislation. Only Paul Ryan could read it, and he'd recommend up or down vote, so it passed. Well, Trump came in, saw it, says, "No, we're out of here. We're America. This is Constitution, three branches of government." But the Board of Peace could be like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and President Trump is on it. Now, he may think, if you can't beat them, join them, and I can direct this to protect America. I think that could really be a motive with him because he spent his entire political career putting America first until this Israeli war. And I haven't always agreed with everything he did, but I think his intentions were for America. And now we have this. And then the final thing. If we ever needed to have the understanding with Israel, we are here and you are there. We make the best technology and have the best military. You are here. And you wouldn't be even here if it wasn't for us being up there and helping to fund and protect you. And I have no problem with that. But they don't know their place. And I'm talking about their place as a nation, not as a people. But their place as a nation is really quite clear. They're dependent on us, but they think they own us at the governmental level, and I'm sick of it. Israeli interests to the tune of $32 million. Let me step aside for a second. I believe it should be a federal law that you may not donate to a political campaign that's not within the jurisdiction of which you're voting. In other words, if you're in District 2 in Illinois, people in District 3 can't give donations. Now, if you're running for a Senate seat, that's the entire state. But there should be no out-of-state donations, period. So what happened to Thomas Massie? Not only is there interesting voter stuff where the voter total doubled from the last primary, and his opponent, who had never won an election before, got 90% of the doubled total. 10% went to Massie. I'll leave that aside. Of course, that's just a statistical anomaly. People win the lottery, and yeah, okay, you'd have to believe in that. But let's get to the fact of the matter. Miriam Adelson, an Israeli citizen, gave $32 million in various forms from different organizations to defeat Thomas Massie because he wanted AIPAC to register as a foreign lobbyist. He also wanted limits on lobbying. He also was opposed to the war. He wanted transparency as to the reasons for the war, and this worked against Israeli interests. And so they brought in foreign money and defeated a U.S. congressman and effectively bought a congressional seat. A foreign power bought a congressional seat. And everyone who can hear my voice should be tremendously upset. I don't care if Massie was a Nazi, a fascist, a communist, a liberal, a Democrat, a Republican. It doesn't matter. The people in that district only should have decided that race. And that did not happen, courtesy of Israel's influence. And I'm going to say this to close. We are here with power, knowledge, technology, and funding. Israel is here. So how is it that they're telling us what to do? How is it that we allow them to influence our elections? Well, because they've got 94% of Congress on their payroll. That's how. How long are we going to put up with this, America? I want a relationship with Israel, but one that's mutually productive. And when we give as much massive aid to Israel as we do, it needs to be on America's terms, not on their terms. Nobody in America in their right mind wants to see the fall of Israel. Nobody. They're too important geopolitically, geographically. But this is unacceptable. They are a foreign government. A foreign government. Don't give me your old Genesis 12:3 because you're misusing it. I've talked about this. ad nauseum. As a Christian, my covenant is with the Lord Jesus Christ and the resurrection. You don't have to share in that. I won't even judge you. I won't condemn you. I'll say that. But don't give me that argument. The bottom line is that we here need to put America first. I'm Dave Hodges. This is the Common Sense Show.